Okay, good.
Oh. any more meetings. If you're able, I would welcome you to join us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, that brings us to your speakers on. Got it. Brings us to a roll call, Doreen.
McMine King,
Yes.
Rachel
Here.
Henderson,
Here.
James Hebert,
Here.
Roger Beely,
Here.
Tella Davis,
Here.
and Jennifer Ladd is absent.
In the absence of Jennifer Tyler, you're joining us in the vote tonight. And with that, we move to approve the minutes from our last meeting, May 19th. The minutes were included in our packet, and I would entertain a motion to enter those into the record.
So moved.
Thank you, Rachel.
Second.
Thank you, Roger. Any planning board comments? Seeing none, Doreen, you want to take the roll?
McMine King,
Yes.
Rachel Henderson,
Yes.
James Hebert,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
and Tella Davis.
Yes.
All right, tonight we have 4 items on our agenda. The first one being 4.01 Acorn Engineering Incorporated on behalf of South Portland Housing Development Corporation. Marshview Housing is requesting a preliminary site plan review to construct a 4-story, 50-unit building restricted for affordability and people ages 55 plus. This property is located at 578 US Route 1, Assessors Map U34, Lot 1. Autumn, do you want to introduce this one to us?
Yes, thank you,
Sure.
Mr. Chair. This is the Marshview project. This was previously brought forward as part of a contract zone request. That contract zone request was denied at council. So this is a revised proposal. This proposal only includes the senior housing, and it's been reduced to 50 units. It is only being developed on the TVC3 portion of the property. They will use 49, if approved, 49 growth permits from the affordable allocation and 1 from Area 2. This is a view of the site plan. The applicant will go over this more in detail, but I did want to point out that the property is now just towards the front of the site, and so the wetlands are no longer being filled. The TVC3 line is right along this area here on the screen that you can see. And so again, it's just the one building. They have moved it further back. It is now 35 to, I believe, 48 feet setback from the street, whereas before it was closer to the street to keep them out of the wetlands. And other than that, the parking is really the same. The reduction in parking would only require 33 spaces. They are proposing 55. So they do have 1 space per unit. They are meeting all of the bulk standards, and they are under the density allowances. They are also meeting our EVCS spaces installation. The height, they're right there at 45 feet. The maximum impervious coverage, they are lower than the allowed 85%, and they are much lower for the maximum building coverage. And with that, I will turn it over to the applicant and let them answer any questions.
Sure.
Sam, I will promote you. Oh, thank you.
All right. Thank you everyone for coming. My name is Ben Money. I'm a development officer for South Portland Housing Authority and the 501c3 South Portland Housing Development Corporation. So today we're going to be talking about the revised development, Marshview Terrace. A few things about this, or about our organization for any members of the public that weren't here for previous presentations. The South Portland Housing Development Corporation is a 501c3 nonprofit that is able to work in and around South Portland and truly the whole country. Our goal is to provide safe, honest, respectable, clean housing in our community and neighboring areas. Through that, we have developed and own currently 795 units of housing. We're developing another 100 in the area. Of that, one of ours is Jocelyn Place, a 60-unit building near the Hannaford. That building's been online for just over a year. We've been very fortunate that that building has been able to provide us with a ton of excellent data that has been poured into this project as well. Some of the items I just want to highlight is that we've been able to use our connections with the city, neighbors, to really take in a lot of community feedback through this process. We've been very process driven based off of what's set forth by the town, which is also why there's been so many opportunities for public comment. The zoning staff or zoning, sorry, the town council and our zoning application, as well as previous comments and meetings that we've had with this planning board. We like to think that this has been a culmination of a year and a half of collaboration with the community, and that's what's brought us to this point now. So I can't remember if we have any slides in particular I should chat. Okay. Okay, cool. So what I'll do now is one of our highlights for this conversation is, of course, traffic. So I'm going to pass it over to our traffic engineer, Tom Erico at TY Lin, and he's going to be able to talk a lot about the detail that we've been working so hard on.
Thank you, Ben. Well, good evening. My name is Tom Erico. I am senior traffic engineer at TY Lin. We're based in Falmouth. And I'm gonna walk you through some slides, kind of summarize the evaluation of transportation conditions, quite frankly, because we looked at more than just the automobile and moving vehicles. This slide really sort of just displays, existing conditions, at the site. And really the thing I want to emphasize is that there are a number of curb cuts to the site today. There are two on Route 1. One to the south that is 58 feet wide and one to the north that is 38 feet wide. There are wide curb cuts. The southerly one is currently restricted. There's a raised median that prevents vehicles from making a left out or a left in at that site. The northerly curb cut, there's actually a slightly raised flush granite concrete surface. So you could make a left out and you could make a left in at that movement. And then off Dolph Way, there's sort of an informal curb cut that, appears to get used occasionally. So yeah, that's I just wanted to frame the existing condition as I start talking about the proposed plan and how we think we're going to improve things significant. Next slide. So this is a slide that sort of documents the number of vehicles that we expect to be generated. This specifically is to and from the project, but this graphic represents traffic that'll be generated ultimately to the project site. And so these are very low numbers. And a couple things I want to emphasize. One is that these numbers are based upon typical methodologies that traffic engineers use. It's from the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They've got a very large database of land uses like this. And it's sort of our go-to document in terms of estimating traffic. We did something else. We decided, Ben talked about Jocelyn Place, a similar type development. We thought that we would also do counts at that site to see how conditions in Scarborough compared to ITE. And what we found was that from a PM perspective, so we look at generally the morning commute time period and anywhere from 7 to 9, and then we look in the afternoon anywhere from 4 to 6 roughly. What we found was that in the afternoon, Jocelyn Place is pretty much generating what ITE says in terms of estimates. So these numbers are ITE, so they're pretty similar. In the morning, Jocelyn Place is generating less traffic than what IT says. So these are numbers that are ultimately a little bit higher in the morning and about similar in the PM. A couple things I want to note on this graphic. One is the number that's not in parentheses, that's the morning peak hour. So in this case, there were, roughly, 4 vehicles that would be going in, and 7 that would be going in, 4 in the morning, 7 in the PM in terms of this graphic. And so, one thing that we do know is that we've worked very closely with town staff about, access to the site, and I'll show you in detail, but ultimately there is a restriction. We're restricting movements to right in, right out with a single driveway. And so there are circulation requirements for people that want to go to and from the site that have destinations, whether northbound or southbound. So in this case, if you want to enter the site from the north, you're going to have to circulate on other roadways because you won't be able to make a left directly from Route 1. So in this case, people from the north, if you look at this graphic, we show 1 vehicle in the morning and 1 vehicle in the afternoon coming down Payne Road. They're going to come down Payne Road so that they can get to Route 1 at the signal near the site, turn left, and ultimately turn right into the site. So there's some circulation patterns that would be required as part of this project. Now, keep in mind, I'll show you another graphic later, that this is not unusual for Route 1. Route 1 has a number of projects, a number of developments that have right turn restrictions. And quite frankly, it's sort of the design template for Route 1. If you look at Route 1 in its entirety, there are a number of locations that have turn restrictions. So in this case, it's likely people use Payne Road to come into the site if they're from the north. And then if you're on Route 1, we show the likely scenarios. They'll turn on Milligan Road, drive up, turn left on Payne, and then get to that same signal, turn left, and come into the site. So a couple of things I just want, and I got another graphic that shows the exiting traffic. One thing I just want to know, these numbers are extremely low. Think about it, these are hourly numbers. This is extremely low. These will have negligible impacts on mobility and safety within the study area. Next slide. So these represent the movements leaving the site. And so again, everybody must turn right when they leave the site. There are going to be our projections based upon the data. There's 6 in the morning and 6 at night. And as they travel northbound, we show 4 are going to continue up Route 1. And if somebody wants to go south, they're going to turn left on Milligan, go up to Payne, circulate back to that same signal at Route 1, and then turn right and head south. And so there's some circulation that's required as part of this. I just will say that the numbers and the type of development are quite low. And the other thing to keep in mind is if you could, again, we don't have data for what that site used to generate for traffic. It was a flea market, and I don't even know historically what was there. It's likely when that was operational, it was generating more traffic than this. And so from the standpoint of comparing what's going to be generated by this site versus what's happened historically, this is a much less intense trip generating use. Next slide. So again, going back quickly to this slide, this is the slide I went through. This is existing conditions, 2 big curb cuts, Route 1, another curb cut on Dolph Way, and then next slide. So this is the plan. So the plan basically is a single driveway, a relatively narrow driveway. And so again, working with staff, it was desirable to really avoid any sort of left turn out or left turn in movement in terms of conflict points. This really minimizes conflicts. In terms of access management, this is the safest type of configuration you can have in terms of avoiding some of those complicated left in, left out movements. So we have a single driveway where there used to be 3, and it's also narrow. So that's sort of part 1. Part 2, there are a few sort of minor things, signage to just reinforce the turn restrictions, extending that raised island. Again, it's raised directly in front of that driveway. Then it becomes sort of this flush concrete. The plan is to extend that island so that ultimately really minimizes sort of that illegal U-turn potential that could happen. But again, that's something that exists, I think, quite a bit in, along Route 1 in the area. The other part of this, and that's why I talked about, it's more than just about the vehicle. The project's installing a sidewalk along their frontage. It's going to connect to the sidewalk system at Payne Road where there's a signal. So the intent is to, listen, if people want to take advantage of some of the other land uses in the Dunstan Corner area and leave their car in the parking lot, this provides good connectivity to the existing sidewalk system. Hopefully it'll even reduce traffic volumes even more by providing those conditions. And then lastly, kind of hard to see, but at the Payne Road intersection, it says new striping. There was a suggestion by staff as part of our evaluation is to look at crash data at that intersection. It's not a high crash location, but there was a desire to understand patterns. And during our evaluation, what we found out was that there was a pattern of side swipe collisions. The two right turn lanes from Payne headed south on Route 1, they were having some collisions. And so we're recommending some pavement markings to help sort of guide motorists as they're making that double right turn. And I think I think that's it. Is that it, Sam? Oh, great. That's right. I forgot about that. Okay, great. Thanks, Sam. So this is a slide, really hard to see, bunch of red X's. It's really meant to show you other driveways just in this immediate area that have turn restrictions. That, again, this is nothing unusual that this project's proposing a restriction where it's right in, right out. It happens at a number of other locations in Dunstan. And again, as I said, it's pretty much sort of the planning template for Route 1 in terms of trying to control movements in a safe, effective way. And so I think this sort of accomplishes that. And then I think the next slide sort of presents, the mixed use condition in this area where we think there are opportunities for people to basically walk between the site, as a residential use to some of the commercial businesses that are there. I mean, that's the whole sort of, purpose of sort of, locating these types of developments in a mixed use area to encourage, foot traffic or other non-vehicle type movements. There is bus service here. That sidewalk system will provide connectivity to bus stops. So again, there are other opportunities to sort of, leave your car in the parking lot. So I'll just leave you with, sort of my, general sort of summary on things, from a driveway perspective, the driveway, and this is sort of links with the ordinance. The ordinance really speaks to minimizing conflict points as part of driveways, and this does that. The right turn, right out minimizes conflict points. So I think it checks that box. The second one is access management, minimizing the number of curb cuts, thinking about how to manage curb cuts. This project reduces the number of curb cuts and ultimately has one narrow curb cut, so it checks the box on that. And then another sort of key ordinance element is sort of thinking about sort of, all transportation, including walkability. And again, this project proposes a sidewalk system that connects to a pretty robust sidewalk system in Dunstan Corner area. And so this project helps to do that too. So anyway, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Members of the board, my name is Sam LaBelle with Acorn Engineering. I'm just going to run you through the site design and the revised proposal. So we are, of course, pleased to be back in front of you tonight with a significantly reduced and lower scale project. After hearing feedback from the board, the public, and council, we went back to the drawing board and we took a hard look at how this project could eliminate wetland impacts as well as reduce traffic impact. And what Ben and Tom have already introduced, I think speaks well to that. We are entirely by right at this point. We are not asking for any variances from the zoning ordinance, nor are we asking for any waivers from the planning board. So just quickly, again, looking at the existing conditions, you've got the flea market with 3 curb cuts, 2 off of Route 1, really unorganized and informal access into the site. The existing stream and wetlands within the forested area there to the plan right, which feeds into the Scarborough Marsh system. And then so flipping to the proposed site plan, you can see here, we are now working entirely within the existing development footprint. In fact, we are actually reducing both the impervious area and the development footprint. As I mentioned, the wetland impact has been reduced to 0. We are respecting at least a 25-foot setback and much greater in most instances. Zooming in one more frame into the proposed site layout, we have moved the building back from the proposed 25-foot setback. We're now at 35 feet here at the pinch point. That then increases to 48 feet here towards the middle of the site. Of course, the right in, right out, which is consistent with any other major site plan that goes through the planning board process. It is a restricted movement by design. Traffic would flow in. We have a pretty conventional parking lot layout with 55 parking spaces. So at the ratio of 1.1 parking spaces per unit, which is a fairly standard ratio. The electrical vehicle charging stations we have implemented here at the middle of the site. We fully meet the ordinance with that respect. We've also marked the EV capable parking spaces, as well as providing conduit and pole wire to all parking spaces for potential build out of the EV charging system. We've incorporated a landscaping buffer around the perimeter of the project, really trying to reestablish vegetation where historically there hasn't been any. I'll show on the next slide a pretty drastic improvement when it comes to impervious area. One key component of the design that hasn't changed is trying to create kind of this courtyard in the interior portion of the building, or the inside of the L there. This area faces south. It's where the main entrance is. We have provided a rain garden, benches, seats, and other areas for kind of that community aspect and placemaking, which has been really successful at Little Dolphin, which has been operational now for about 2 years. From a utilities perspective, we are still intending to bury some of the overhead wires that run up Doloff Way. Otherwise, everything will be underground. And from a stormwater management perspective, another drastic improvement. We've got 3 different types of best management practices. Soil filter here in the bottom right-hand corner, the rain garden, which I mentioned, and a drip edge, all with the intention of capturing the runoff as close to the source as possible, cooling it down, filtering it, and then slowly outletting. So not only are we treating for quality a significant amount more than what's going on today, but we'll also be maintaining or reducing the peak runoff rates. So both from a quality and a quantity perspective, the stormwater is seeing a major improvement. And then just kind of putting the project parameters in a table here to compare it to the previous application on the left, which was before the board and council earlier this spring, as well as the existing site on the far right-hand column. So going down, you've got impervious area, which we are proposing at 0.89 acres. As you can see, that's about half of what exists out on site today at 1.79. And it's also a drastic reduction from the previous application. Similarly, developed area, we are proposing 1.62 acres of developed area. That includes roof, pavement, and lawn areas. That is also a reduction from the existing site and a drastic reduction from the previous application. Looking at the front setback, the existing site out there today, not including the large deck that is in between Route 1 and the building, but actually taking to the 2-story structure is at a 20-foot setback right now. The average front setback for our proposal, we would be more than doubling that. Again, another increase from the previous application. Looking at wetland impacts, the previous application was close to 13,000 square feet. We have eliminated all wetland impacts. Traffic generation, the previous application, we were projecting about 32 trips. Again, that was with 96 units. 60 affordable, 36 workforce. That has now been reduced to 50 affordable. And based on, as Tom mentioned, ITE best practices, as well as an actual case study at Jocelyn Place a month ago, we are projecting just over a third of that at 13 in the peak hour. Again, also a reduction from the existing site as it has functioned historically. Looking at parking, the previous application was at 114 parking stalls. We have cut that in half at 55, which is also a reduction from the existing site. And then lastly, the treated impervious percentage. That's the only thing that's been maintained from the previous application, as we are at about 89% of at a treatment level for impervious area. Obviously a drastic improvement when compared to the existing site, which currently treats 0% of its existing impervious area. So again, we're pleased to be able to come back to you with a project that fully complies with the ordinance. As Tom mentioned, we have worked hard both with staff and the DOT to provide the safest possible curb cut and driveway to the project. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on the site layout or any of these, this project data here. I will let Ben from CWS give him an opportunity here to just touch upon the building design before we end our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I'm Ben Walter with CWS Architects from Scarborough, Maine, where our office is right across the street. We have been working on modifying this proposal along with the site. Most of the changes have been based on the site, but we've put a lot of focus on the pedestrian character of the building too, the courtyard, the south-facing courtyard, in terms of having outdoor space. You know, this is the home for 50 senior people. We've worked on a lot of senior housing projects, and one thing that's really important is that they do create a community of their own on these sites. And so we really try to design and reinforce around that. What you're looking at here is what you're seeing on the exterior, the outdoor spaces. The south-faced courtyard is going to be a very viable, protected from the street noise, et cetera, space. So that's what we've done. But right inside, beyond those, the entry is all the community spaces that go along with the building. And aside from that, you know, the building is really 50 apartment units. So it's the ideal size community for a senior housing project, because a certain amount of critical mass makes for a community within the space itself, within the building itself, that's viable. With that said, you know, they're certainly going to have the ability to walk to other amenities nearby, drive to other amenities, et cetera. We've seen this kind of model work very successfully in the past, and that's pretty much all I have to say. So, thank you.
Is the applicant all set at this point? Thank you very much. This item is up for public comment, but before I open it up, I just want to acknowledge 5 written letters regarding this development. One from Andrew Orkin, Elizabeth Malasapina, Pat Sullivan, John Eastman, and Ann Eastman. So those have been entered in, and I appreciate receiving those. Also, before I open the floor up, I just want to remind folks that as a planning board, we're really focused on the use of the land, and we are focused on, are they meeting the ordinances that we have established here in the town? Are they meeting any federal or state regulations that must be complied with? We do not get involved in any sort of financing, whether it's a TIF or a CEA. That is outside our purview. So those kind of comments need to be directed, I think, at this point to town council or actually the town. So I just wanted to remind you folks that we're here focused on the use of this land, and is it in accordance with the established guidelines that this board operates under? So, given that context, I open up this for public comment, reminding you, you have 3 minutes, and give you a gentle tap when you're nearing that. And we'll start with, you have the floor.
Thank you. My name is Richard Hayes. I live on Martin Avenue. As I have said in the past, I am against this project. Several reasons. They've made a nice story about traffic on Route 1. I don't believe it. Traffic is terrible. There's a housing project right across the street from this that tries to direct traffic. I see illegal turns there all the time. I live in the Dunston area. I travel through there typically 2 or 3 times a day. Traffic is a major issue. They talk about walkability. If that's true, and if a lot of people start walking the neighborhood and start pushing buttons to create safe walking, that's just going to annoy the daylights out of traffic that's already annoyed. If anybody drives around town, you typically see cars going through yellow lights, if not red lights, on a regular basis. That's a dangerous place. They've addressed several things. They have not addressed the things that are most critical in my mind because they can't. Right in, right out is a disaster. If there are other issues, other places in town along that stretch, I don't believe they create the kind of traffic that this will, and they are not at what is, in my mind, a high traffic intersection to begin with. They talk about the water runoff. I believe I've heard correctly that they're going to treat this by running it through grasslands or I don't believe there's much owned land on either side of their proposal. Dolph Way, currently there's a strip of grass that may be 2 feet wide. So and another major concern is the marsh. I hear tons of talk about we've got to protect our beautiful marsh. And then I keep seeing projects that are creating dangers to the marsh. They aren't filling wetlands, but the wetlands are still there. They aren't doing anything to the brook, but the brook is still there. The water from this is going to run into those areas and into the marsh through one of the gentlemen just stating that. What happens to the concern about the marsh? I think the traffic is a major issue. I think a 40-foot wall sitting close to Route 1 is not a pretty sight. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah.
Denise Hamilton of Two Rod Road. My comments on this project can probably go for the item on the agenda next as well. I'm here to raise serious concerns about the proposed 50-unit, 55 and plus apartment complex, specifically its location in a high traffic area and the restriction to the right-in, right-out access only. This area already sees significant traffic congestion. Adding dozens of new residents along with visitors, service vehicles, emergency responders will only increase pressure on the roadway. But what's even more troubling is the limited access design. A right-in, right-out setup may seem like a simple traffic control measure, but in practice, it's dangerous, especially for an older population. Residents needing to go left will be forced to make U-turns further down the road, often in high-speed traffic or at busy intersections. This creates confusion and increases the risks of accidents, not just for residents, but for everyone on the road. And there's a more serious issue, flooding. This development is near the marsh, and when the marsh floods, as it has in the past, the right turn out becomes impossible because you cannot go down Milliken. If that's the only exit point, how will residents safely leave? How will emergency services get in? We cannot ignore the risk this poses, especially for a vulnerable older population, as it's not guaranteed the age of the residents will be on the lower end. This isn't just about traffic flow, it's about public safety and responsible planning. I urge the board to consider the real-world impact this design will have. Is a right-in, right-out setup really appropriate for this location? And if not, what's the alternative? Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Hi, Marvin Gates, 423 Black Point Road. I was here the last time, commented the last time this came up. I know at that point, and I am underscoring what Denise just said, I don't really have anything new to add. I am disappointed, though. I understand you go by the book. Does it meet the criteria? If so, yes. Next, please. I do think that going by the book is your job, and at the same time, there's a perception that the public has of how these things work. And one of the things, without going into detail about that, that my perception of this process was very much disappointed when the traffic analyst, engineer, have a lot of respect for him, didn't mention at all what Denise just mentioned about when the Route 1 floods. It's a serious intellectual concern to anybody who looks at this project. Maybe there's a solution. I'm disappointed that it wasn't even addressed. It was brought up quite clearly the last time this came forward. Our traffic engineer, or rather our town engineer, Angela, I think, spoke at that last meeting and said that on average, Route 1 floods more often than it has in the past, maybe as much as annually. I think Denise's question needs to be answered, and I think it should have been answered by the traffic engineer based on what was discussed the last time this appeared, without having the public have to ask for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin.
Rosemary D'Angelo, South Portland. As a resident of South Portland, you might wonder why I'm here, but I took time to come to share my relationship with the South Portland Housing Authority. I've served 2 terms on the City Council in South Portland and presently serve as chair of the South Portland Bicycle Pedestrian Committee, as well as on the school board. My relationship with the Housing Authority goes back almost 2 decades, and I have the utmost respect for them and find them to be community-minded, highly responsive to the needs and the mission of a town, and dedicated to affordable housing, workforce housing, and 55 and up housing. South Portland Housing Authority has held community meetings, listening to concerns and desires of residents. They are concerned about the walkability and the environmental pleasantries of any project. In this day where we should be and where we need to be sensitive to the needs of our demographics and the changes in our demographics, the Housing Authority pays attention to how to best serve residents, committed to balance in both economy and population change. I would say that as we strive to provide adequate housing for all those in need, traffic can be a concern. The Housing Authority will work hard to address these needs and to work in partnership with Scarborough. They have no desire to create poor living conditions or or to hurt traffic. That serves no purpose. Education is key to successful projects, and I'm confident we can do this. I have found the Housing Authority to be respectful and responsive, to listen and react to those things that are important to any town or city. I've worked with them on 2 previous projects, both with great success. There was persistence from neighbors, as you've heard here tonight, and all of those neighbors are now thrilled with the projects that went forward in South Portland. The goal is to meet your local ordinances, and this project will enhance this commitment greatly and this community. I feel honored to know the leaders of the Housing Authority and encourage you to support this project and to welcome the Housing Authority into your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Good evening, board members. My name is Adrian Dowling. I'm a resident of South Portland. I actually used to be a member of South Portland's planning board, so I have a great deal of respect and admiration for the work that you do. And when I hear some of these buzzwords like traffic counts and roof line drip edge filter, it brings back all the memories I had of being on the South Portland planning board. I don't normally get involved in other communities' business. We've got enough to keep track of in South Portland. But when I was on the planning board there, I got to see a lot of housing developments apply and eventually come to fruition from small developers, large developers, affordable housing developers, market rate developers. And you get to see how those things play out from initial application all the way to eventually building occupancy. And one of the things that was really remarkable about the South Portland Housing Authority when they would come to the planning board is, I think more than any other developer that came before us, they took into account all of the neighborhood concerns, the planning board concerns. When department heads, whether it was code or fire, police, or whoever would offer suggestions, they met every single one of them. And that was not true of all of the developers that came to us. I've now had the chance to witness several of their projects in South Portland, and there's many of the same concerns come up. There are neighbors, abutters who have really sincerely held beliefs and concerns and worries. And, I even had some of those concerns myself. And I just know that these are such consummate professionals that, unlike some of the other developers, they don't, say, yes, sir, we'll take that into account, and then forget about it. They actually do take it into account. And they read and understood our comprehensive plan. And it's one thing to read it, but to really understand it is a whole nother ballgame. They understood our zoning and our ordinances and our codes. And, I didn't know this was on your agenda tonight. No offense, I don't normally follow the Scarborough Planning Board agenda, but when I heard that this was on the agenda, I just wanted to share how great they were to work with, how seriously they take all of this stuff. They, if they say they're going to do something, they will. So I just hope that, it's for the audience and the folks at home as much as anything to give you a little more confidence. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tracy St. John. I live on Hidden Creek in Scarborough. I do support 50 and over. I do think there's a need, but I don't think the location is where we need to have it. There's many other locations. Jocelyn's Place is a great location. It's off of Route 1, so you can't really compare this project to Jocelyn Place because it's completely off Route 1. It doesn't affect traffic. It's a beautiful spot, but it's definitely in the right spot. This is not in the right spot. This is a Scarborough Planning Board. I do think that for the most part, it should be coming from Scarborough residents. But back to the main point. From what I understand, this is a 4-story building still. It does not fit the area. It's not pretty. It does not fit Scarborough, and I think that that's a concern of mine. My office is directly next door. On Monday, it took me 5 minutes to get out, Tuesday, 4 minutes, Wednesday, 6 minutes, Thursday, 4 minutes, and Friday, 6 minutes. That's not during summer traffic. I can't imagine what it will be when we have more. Even though they cut down, that's still adding much more traffic going through. The other problem is with it going right in and right out, when they miss the entrance into that property, they are going to be turnarounds consistently in my parking lot, taking down my small business and my family business. We can't afford to have people doing circular driveway through my parking lot that's a semicircle. Infrastructure, we can't do it anymore. They can barely plow our town at this point, and we're just adding more and more residential places, and especially on Route 1. We already have city vehicles that go through our parking lot, so we already know that we have an issue with it. I can only imagine what it's going to be when this goes in. It's up to the planning board, and we appreciate everything you do, but we need to cut down on the building. It's just ruining our town, and it's going to change the way our town is, and we're going to have people just, it's not upset with it in general, like most of us here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tracy. Anyone else?
My name is Mary Pelkey, and I live at Bessie Crossing here in Scarborough. And I spoke last time about in support of the proposed senior apartments. What I want to mention tonight is that I am sorry to hear that the workforce housing is no longer a part of this project. I feel that it's so badly needed. I have grandchildren. I know what they find when they're trying to look for an apartment. And since rents are $2,000 to $3,000 a month, it's not just seniors who are finding it difficult to afford to live in Southern Maine. I was on a waiting list at 5 different rental properties, and it took me 2 years to get an apartment. I am now living at Bessie Crossing, which is an independent senior housing, meaning no services are provided. Our rents are one of the few affordable rents at $11.50 a month, and there are over 100 people on our waiting list at this time. I'd like to make a few points. First of all, I hear so much about the heavy traffic on Route 1, but I have to say again, seniors do not contribute to the heavy traffic, especially at commuter time. We know better than to travel at that time. We travel outside those hours. Also, some seniors do not even own a vehicle, so they're not going to be traveling on that road. Most of us have owned our own homes and contributed to the taxes of the school budgets and other town expenses. Most of us have had to sell our homes because of either high taxes and/or we were unable to keep up with needed repairs because we were not able to find people that we could hire to do those. My house was in the country, which I love, but my family worried about me being alone out there, so I moved into town. Most of us seniors have planned to stay in our own homes, but sometimes poor health forces us to decide otherwise. It's comforting to be living within a community of people who check on each other. Our building is secure, therefore we feel very safe there. The senior population is growing rapidly, and more housing is definitely needed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else? Anybody online?
I do not have anyone online with their hands up.
All right, with that, I will close public comment and open this up to the board. You do have a hand, so we'll quickly reopen it and want to make sure everybody is heard.
Catherine Williams, you can speak.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I live at 1 Steeplechase Drive, just off of Pine Point Road, and so I am driving by the location, and it is in my community. I'm not in the direct abutter, but I understand the concerns that have been raised by the individuals tonight, and I'm sure there are far more people that would be here tonight or speaking tonight had they known that this was happening. It is a real problem with community conversation, that there isn't enough opportunity to ensure that people participate in an active way. You make it seem like nobody's concerned, but most people are. So I'd like to speak for a number of people that I know who are very concerned about what is happening. I agree with all the comments about the traffic. I think that it hasn't been pointed out the conditions that exist with the lights at Pine Point and US 1 and the lights at Payne Road and US 1 and how much they back up for people trying to move and how much frustration there is created in that particular scenario that's only going to be exacerbated by the addition of potentially 50 families moving out into the world on those roads. And we can't ignore, we can try and pretend it's not very much, but there's still 50 families that are going to be living in those 50 units. And they do, and most people do have cars in them. So I do think it is something that you need to pay attention to. And the U-turns and the turning onto, you're trying to prevent people crossing US 1 by extending the median and having lots of signs, but all you're doing is pushing it further down. And even crossing onto Milken is very dangerous. So you need traffic lights to deal with these kinds of conditions, and to expect people to make that circle around the Payne Road every time they need to travel in the opposite direction that the traffic flow would naturally happen. You're fooling yourself. It's not fair to the citizens and the residents of this area to suggest that that's exactly what's going to happen, because it's not. So that's it on the traffic. I'd also like to bring up the issue of the affordable housing. I think it's absolutely commendable and something we really do need. But I think that put seniors at risk like that is terrible. And I do think there's nothing really, I'd like a little bit more information about how these houses are going to be affordable. I assume that will all be rental, but I'd like to know a little bit more about that, because it just seems like the location is not very, maybe a nice community with 50 residents, 50 families living in these units, but the accessibility to what the kinds of things they need, it's not a very good place, and it's not safe to have them. People do not want to walk along Route 1. People do not want to cycle along Route 1, where you are going to be putting that building. So we're going to put seniors out on the street right there. It just doesn't make any sense. And then the watershed. We really need the Maine Department of Environmental Protection to do a really serious assessment of what the watershed and the impact. You talk about, well, it's way better than it is now. Well, that's not what we're trying to achieve.
Catherine, we have to wrap it up here. Can you finish up quickly?
Sure. I just wanted to say we're trying to create a better environment. We're not trying to equal the bad environment that may have already exist. So I really do think a more thorough study of the traffic, a more thorough study of the environment, and a more serious assessment of the needs of this population we want to create. There are many places you could be putting this building, and this is the wrong place to put it. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Anybody else sneaking in there?
No.
All right, we are closed with that section and turning it over to my colleagues. And Rachel, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Mr. Chair, I really appreciate the way you started this off to outline what our role is here. There's something about our role that that adds to what you talked about. And that is, first of all, we are a quasi judicial body. And that means our role is defined by the state of Maine. And we take an oath to follow all of those guidelines. One of the things that we are cautioned not to do is to decide if we like or don't like a development. That's not our job. Our job is to look at the development in front of us, the building in front of us, and say, does it meet the guidelines? Does it meet the codes? Do we have the information that we need to make an informed decision? One of the things that we do not do is decide whether we like or don't like the people who might attend that development. Is it a saloon? Is it a bar? Is it going to be a cannabis dispensary? Whether we like that or don't like that, that's not something that we consider. That's not our job. Our job is to take a look at the facts in front of us and the codes in front of us and determine whether the applicant has met those codes. Now, in some cases, we can have a difference of opinion. Some of you have brought up the problem with traffic. Well, we've listened to Mr. Errico, who went through a decent analysis of the effect of that housing development upon traffic. It is less than what was there. It certainly would be less than a restaurant on that site. It would be less than a small grocery store on that site. It would be less than another pharmacy on that site. In other words, there are a lot of things that could be on that site, but one of the things that would not impact traffic in a major way is a senior housing development. It simply doesn't. I believe Mr. Errico indicated, what, 13 cars during the peak hours. That's 13 cars in 60 minutes. Actually, it's 13 cars in 120 minutes because the peak hours are 2 hours, I believe. Okay, well, I'm sorry, I'm stand corrected with the finger wave back there. It is 13 cars in 60 minutes onto the road. Now, if they're all lined up at exactly the same time, yeah, that's going to be fascinating. But it is not likely to happen. In other words, it is, from Mr. Errico's studying, it is less than what we would see with a restaurant at lunch or in the evening. It simply is, depending on all of the possibilities that could be there. We are looking at this possibility. Folks are concerned about the traffic down Route 1 and what's going to happen to the marsh and the water coming over Route 1. I'm concerned about that too. Everybody up there, up and down Route 1, should be concerned about it, not just because of this one development, but because we have a problem with sea rise. Now, the state is taking a look at what it can do to make Route 1 more resilient. There are going to be a lot of studies. One possible study could say, we're going to take Route 1, we're going to raise it, and we're going to have one lane in each direction with a wide esplanade in the middle to slow down the traffic and encourage people to go to who would be traveling through, to go to the turnpike rather than try to make their way through Scarborough, so that the people on that Route 1 might be only basically from Scarborough. We don't know what's going to happen. We know something is going to happen to Route 1. Otherwise, nobody is going to be able to drive over the marsh, and Scarborough will be cut off. That's what's going to happen in 30, 40 years. The town is looking at that. So I understand the concern. I also understand that a lot of very smart people are looking at the whole issue of Route 1. I also understand that Autumn has passed out a survey about what can happen on Route 1, correct? I encourage you all to fill it out, and as soon as I can figure out how to do a QR code on my phone, I will do that as well. So yeah, I mean, we know that's going on there, but what we have in front of us is this development. I recall my remarks the last time, which is I thought it was a really great development, but it was in the wrong place. I would really have liked to see a senior affordable and a workforce housing combination, because that sort of combination of community, I think, would have been very vital. But that wasn't going to happen. Now we have a affordable senior development that, in my opinion and study, meets the criteria of the town of Scarborough. I want more information. So you folks can come back. That's the first time I've seen the architecture. I'd like to see the elevations all the way around. I'd like to see better landscaping in terms of some massing at the foundation. I would like to see a picture, a schematic that actually matches the same schematic as you have in the package, because it doesn't quite. I want to see that. I want to know about the trail, where that's going, what you're going to do with it. I also think that given what some of the folks have said and they've written, the concern about, I guess, illegal activity or some sort of strangers walking through the property, I don't think there's much you can do about that. But I do think it might be possible for you to do an outline of the property with some boulders here and there, so that it's very clear where your property is. So somebody who might wander through there understands that they're going onto private property. In other words, find a way to develop a bit of a separation between your lot and the lot of some of the neighbors who do have a concern about folks perhaps taking the trail, leaving the trail, going down another street. You can never prevent them from doing that, but you can prevent people from accidentally encroaching upon other property. So I would ask you to take a look at that. I think you've done a good job. I think you've brought us something that we can work with. Do I like right in, right out? No. Is there an alternative? I don't think so. Not given all of the right-ins and right-outs along Route 1. They're there. They might not be immediately visible, but they're there. The height of the building, you know, you can have a building up to 45 feet high. The fact that people haven't built that way is perhaps understandable when there was plenty of land, but there's less land now. I would rather have a building going up than a lot of sprawl going out, especially in an area that is basically zoned for density. So I think take a look at what else is around there. Take a look at Bessie Commons, Bessie Crossing, the 605 Route 1 down there. That's the old poorhouse or the orphanage. That's about 35 to 40 feet high. And we're talking 45 feet. So you could use that as take a look at what another 5 feet would look like. That's it. Take a look at that. Take a look at the church steeple and see how tall that is. Look at the public safety building. We have taller buildings now in Scarborough. Because as I said, we are in our comp plan looking at density. Going up makes sense. Going out, not if we can avoid it, I would think. So I don't know if you have any questions when we're all done here. Happy to answer any that you have. The developers, I think I've outlined what I need. I do want more about the trail. I want to know what it looks like. I understand you're doing a meadow, no, not a rain garden, but instead of grass, you're going to have a meadow planting, flowers for pollinators. Good. Keep going with things like that. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Can we work down the line there, James?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concerns here and were concerns previously, obviously related to the traffic pattern coming in and out of the facility. Similar project that I had similar concerns on a Muzzy Road, between Muzzy Road and Gallery Boulevard. We had asked that particular applicant to work with the abutters to utilize the intersection that was available on Muzzy Road rather than have another right-hand turn on a Muzzy Road. Just because the right turn method has been a consistent method since I have been alive in this area, having grown up in this area myself. It doesn't mean that the right-hand turn on the Route 1 is a solution that we should keep perpetuating. Far too many times, I mean, myself trying to jump out on a Route 1 to take a left turn out of Pine Tree Seafood, people are going to do it. I think while I appreciate the median on Route 1 that is being extended, I think it needs to be extended further because someone's going to try to make that jump. Also noted, not just here, but also at regional GP COG meeting and from town staff, Route 1 in that section continues to flood more frequently in the last few years. I don't oppose this project. I think senior housing is something that's desperately needed in town as opposed to any other kind of housing. I think senior housing is the most important that we should be considering for our town here as the folks are aging and as we transition out of our homes into other places. However, on this particular site, I need to see at least some kind of investigation, possible solution into utilizing that existing traffic light through the neighbor. I know it's Leviathan tattooed and the iPhone repair store that's there. I'm sure those discussions may have already happened at some point. But there has to be some way a deal can be made or in some way. Otherwise, I have a hard time with supporting the amount of traffic that, yes, debate when during hours, traffic highs, traffic lows. This particular intersection is always a congested section of town throughout most times of the year, especially in the summertime. I mean, Pine Point Road is really almost impassable during certain mornings of the week, depending on the weather and the time of year. I think this adds to it in a really not really productive way. And again, I want to see more information about how we can try to use something to tie into that intersection and that light. Otherwise, I have no other comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, James. Roger?
Thank you. Initially, I'll start off by saying, as far as I can determine, looking at all the material, this project meets all the requirements that our zoning and our ordinances require, okay? Now, I think some of the residents have some interesting concerns, and maybe we can get some, I'm getting it up over here. Can one of the speakers, can one of you folks go up there? I have a question for you. Traffic. No, the building actually.
I'm Ben Walter.
Okay, thank you. Last time, one of the concerns was a four-story building. And I know that's allowed, okay, so there's no question about that. But I was wondering, can you explain the rationale for retaining the four-story building versus going down to 3 stories or maybe lower and having it spread out a little bit more? Is there, in other words, is there a cost factor involved with it?
Yeah, there's a number of factors that are involved, excuse me. So a 4-story building is gonna have a tighter footprint, so it's not as big of an impact on the site itself. So you do have a benefit from that standpoint. You know, if you go 3 stories, this building's gonna sprawl out farther. It's gonna be a third bigger in all directions. So, you know, the zoning allows 4 stories. So we've done probably over the last 5 years as the zoning ordinances in a lot of municipalities have changed to accept that. We've been doing a lot of those. We just did a big project, a very similar size project in Westbrook that's 4 stories, right across from the Westbrook High School. And it's very similar to this. And it's very well received and it works very well. If you want to take a drive by there and take a look at how that feels very appropriate. This is you know, we're in the 21st century. People are understanding and realizing that land is a commodity that we can't really create more of. So getting more density on the smaller sites, going from 3 to 4 stories is one of the reasons why zoning ordinances have modified to accommodate that. And it's in this particular use with senior apartments, you know, 40 people inside of a building in 40 apartments is a nice sized community. And it really doesn't bother anybody to take an extra, you know, story elevator ride up to their 4th story in order to get maybe a better view over the marsh or whatever it is. It certainly works well. Code wise, if you go to 5 stories, it turns into a different kind of a construction type, gets more expensive. So staying in the 4 stories, you're in wood frame still, it works well.
Okay. The other, while you're up there, the other issue has come up about the big wall along Payne Road, along Route 1. Excuse me. Do you have a rendering? You showed a rendering at, looking at the courtyard from the driveway. Do you have a rendering by chance right now?
I don't think we have it right now. I think we had it as part of the previous submission, but this time we haven't shown it on the application, as far as I know. But we certainly have that and we can certainly provide it.
I know you have this, but.
Yeah.
But, you know, because I think it would be helpful if the residents or the people in that neighborhood could see what it looks like if you're driving along Route 1.
Sure.
You know, with the proposed landscaping and et cetera like that.
Yeah. Certainly bring that.
Okay. The other thing that came up is, and I think it's a legitimate concern, is the flooding. What happens if there's flooding and then how do people rescue units and, you know, get into Portland, for instance, from there? And now we've had flooding on Route 1 before, and I assume the police go down there and they monitor everything and they direct traffic where to go. Is that a fair assessment? Miss Engineer?
Yeah, our emergency response, our fire chief, Kinlan, heads the emergency response. And so ahead of any predicted storms, those barricades go up. We can predict in most cases when that is going to happen ahead of that and get the word out to residents. One of the part of the vulnerability assessment that is underway right now, part of it is talking about doing a more communication plan and emergency response because we are showing flooding scenarios that are pretty significant in our beach communities, specifically Pine Point, and how to get in and out of that. And so that's definitely being discussed right now. And I would encourage anybody to go on our town website to the vulnerability assessment. There is a great story map, and you can look at anywhere in town and turn on different scenarios for the flooding and sea level rise. We looked at 10 different scenarios during that process in different sea level rise scenarios, going up to as much as a 10-foot sea level rise from today. So in that worst case scenario at the year 2100, I'm looking at the map right now. It doesn't even come close to, I think one of the abutters talked about their loop road closer to the marsh. It doesn't get near this property. I'm not sure, like I said, that was kind of doomsday scenario, scenario 10. If you look at the rest of our community, this is not impacted by this property.
Okay. The bottom line is, in anticipation of a natural flooding disaster, the town is well prepared, or at least can anticipate this and make plans. So it's not like all of a sudden
Yeah.
we're gonna have a flash flood.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Our emergency response, they are ahead of those in the predictions. I will say that's a short term. Obviously, as Rachel pointed out, we're really focusing on long term. Like ultimately, that's not our solution, is put barricades up, right? And say, can't go this way. So obviously, looking at the long term is, and we're partnering with the state around that. So
Sure.
it's more than just a Scarborough issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Can I just add a little bit to that?
Sure, yeah.
And so I think Angela's on it. I mean, most likely police fire would set up some sort of a barricade detour system as part of managing traffic, as part of the closure. I mean, closures happen, whether it's part of an accident or in this case, sea level rise issue. I think for this site in particular, but also for the entire area. So fire, police, EMS, they need to get to southern Scarborough. So most likely they'll travel via Payne Road. Payne Road will be backed up because that's where everybody will be going. But they'll have to manage and figure out how to get through there to get to this site or any other site in this area. So it's not only about this project and making it accessible during that closure. For people leaving the site, there's nobody traveling southbound on Route 1 under that closure, right? So it's blocked Route 1. They likely just will do what everybody thinks the U-turn movements will do. They'll go around the island and get themselves to Payne Road to get out of the site. There won't be any traffic. And it's possible that there'll be some sort of signage system. You see it quite a bit where police and fire will set up temporary stop signs and other sort of traffic control measures as part of controlling that system. So we think it's a scenario that happens and needs to be worked out, but we think through the town's fire police system, I think we think it can be worked out.
Okay, thank you. Just a comment on the location, because that has been brought up. One advantage of Route 1 is public transportation. We might actually have some viable public transportation in the future. And Route 1 is where most of it would occur. And I guess I'm not sure anybody could answer this question, but one of the letter writers spoke about Stonegate, the Avesta property, and basically made some disparaging comments about what's going on there. Are we encountering any kind of issues, whether it's people wandering around or safety or health or any other kind of issues pertaining to that development that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We'd be happy to reach out to public
Yeah.
safety to see if they're aware of any.
And I guess just the last comment I will make is that I've heard over the years a lot of discussion about traffic, and we do have issues with traffic. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Route 1 is a real mess, no matter how you slice it. And I don't know how businesses actually can survive there with some of the restrictions we put on them. But one thing I've learned over the years is that when we have our peer reviewers, the traffic peer reviewers and the developers' traffic analysis, they tend to be pretty much spot on when on their evaluations. And I've heard comments from the public about all this disastrous traffic, and it's going to be all kinds of traffic and all this other stuff. These are seniors. These are going to be seniors in this development, and we have to watch out. They're not out there with their tricycles trying to cross Route 1. So I'll just leave it at that at this point, so you don't have any renderings of it. at this point of what it would look like? I mean, it's, realistic looking renderings? Okay, well, I think Rachel asked for that too, so. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Tyler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to echo some of my colleagues up here, appreciate the applicant's revision to the plans and the responsiveness to some of the feedback offered both by commenters and by the board at the first review of the plan. I think some of the improvements made really improved the project, especially reducing and actually foregoing entirely the impact to the wetlands. And just generally responding to some of the feedback is really, really appreciated. My kind of lingering concern is really just kind of single-fold at this point, and it does relate to traffic. And in particular, the dedicated left turn lane on the southbound travelway. I didn't see, and I apologize if I missed it, but I didn't see any of the material kind of specifically that lane and the impact of the likely scenario in which somebody's using that lane to turn left, intending to go to the facility and either turning around in the parking lot of the tattoo parlor and the iPhone fixing store there, or so setting aside kind of the illegal U-turn, turning around in that driveway. I see that as kind of a likely scenario. I'd be curious if that's something that can either be counted or modeled, or if there's an equivalent site at which just the magnitude of that potential can kind of be quantified. Because I see that as a traffic risk with kind of that lane being there. I understand there's changes to the median. Whether or not that's will address that potential issue, I'd be curious to know if that's kind of a specific intention or kind of included in the updates before us here. So that's really my only concern, is that kind of dedicated left turn lane and the impact for the site. But otherwise, as I think we've addressed or spoken to, the plan does look to meet the requirements of the ordinances, and appreciate the commenters from the town here as well tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Tyler. And thanks to all my colleagues. I do have a couple of questions. And I don't know who best to answer that, but given the reduction of land use that this project is going to need, has there been any conversations with the Conservation Commission on maybe dedicating some of this land back to Scarborough as through the land trust? So that's one question I have. Feel free to anybody answer that if they will. Must do it at the podium.
Yes, so it's a conversation worth having with that group. At this point, we've still been trying to pursue housing as best we can, given the need and the comprehensive plan that's been the goal stated of the town. And so we've been pursuing that. If we'd like to have those conversations later, we are open to those conversations. We work quite regularly with towns with regards to land donations or land swaps. Perhaps the town owns other lands that they'd prefer housing built, and sometimes we can do land swaps and things of that nature.
I think it's worth a conversation with them and seeing if there was, some way that we can indicate that there won't be any more growth in that area that could get hooked up onto Route 1. So I just think that conversation's worth having, and we should know if there's potential there. Also in the packet, I did not see the lighting plan. So when you come back with your next submission, can you ensure that it's listed as an index, but it's not in the plans? So we're going to need to see that as well as the fixtures. And my other question is, I'd like a little bit more understanding on why 55 spaces is needed for this property. It's, it's in our ordinance that you need, what, 1.5 per unit?
So this with the affordable, there's a reduction that the state allows. You can do 2 spaces for every 3 units.
2 spaces for every 3 units.
Mhm.
So 55 is a little bit overbuilt.
I think if I may speak, the idea was to provide at least 1 space per unit and then to allow some for visitors, understanding there may be some units that do have 2 people driving.
Okay, and this is 50 units? All right, so maybe it's not too.
And I
too built
can, I
up.
can speak a little bit to that. The funding component of this project is a low-income housing tax credit through Maine Housing. And as a part of their criteria, they make a very strong recommendation. Sometimes there can be waivers, but at least 1-to-1 parking.
Okay,
So that's kind of where that comes from.
okay,
And so it's-
understood,
Yeah.
understood. And then finally, I was looking at your project team and I noticed there's no Unitil on there. Does that mean there's no natural gas going to be in this property? So,
So this building would be a passive house design, so no need for natural gas.
okay, so we're going to probably have on-site generation. I think that's what you had indicated. In
Yeah, there'd be solar on the roof, and then EV chargers, of course.
Yep.
And then this would be a extremely airtight building with heat pumps, heating and cooling the units as well. Each tenant would have control of that on their own, as well as fresh air through a ERV or VRF system. So air exchange from the outdoors, filtered before entering and exiting the building, as well as the climate control to come with that.
So an all-electric building hooked up to a clean grid makes for minimal greenhouse gas, right?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
There's currently several propane tanks around the site now, so.
I noticed those as well. Yeah. Do you have any questions for us? I know you're likely to come back to see us. You've heard what we've said. I do agree that rendering drawings with the landscape and everything is a really nice visual, and it would be something that I would like to see as well. But here's your chance to ask us anything.
I think you guys have made some great points. I definitely hear that we can provide some more renderings at this point. We always try not to overinvest too much at a preliminary phase, so that's why some things might not have been included in this packet, being a preliminary site plan. Given that we've been kind of a nod to push forward and provide some more information in our final application, we'll definitely include some more information on, it sounds like our landscaping. We'll cover quite a bit more in that in our next presentation, as well as some renderings of the front of the building. We'll talk a good bit about the walking path at the back of the site. I can tell you just a little bit now that the intent of that walking path will be for the residents. It won't be connected to any other walking paths in the area. So it shouldn't be generating any extra traffic or pedestrian traffic in the area. We shouldn't have any reason for people to be walking about that around there because unless they were at these meetings, they are not going to know about that walking path for residents. And to speak a little bit to the security, I can answer as well now. Our sites are extremely secure. They're all keyed entries to the building, usually with double doors. And that's for delivery drivers as well. They're not able to just walk right in. And with that, there's always camera systems around the entire building pointed at any high traffic areas. So we can monitor the cars coming and going, people walking around the site in and out of it. So we actually find that our sites are extremely secure. At a later time, we can talk more about the traffic counts and life safety calls, things like that. I can tell you from our building, Jocelyn Place, in terms of safety, in the last year, from I believe starting last week, when I talked to the fire department, there were only 7 public safety calls in 1 year time. Some of those were also misdials to 911. So that's separate from EMS or fire calls, but from a safety standpoint, police department visiting the site, whether it was an accident or not, it was actually only 7 calls an entire year for a building of 60 people. So trying to answer a few things now for you. Overall, I appreciate the comments. I think this has been super productive. Really happy to see where we've gotten from this point. Like I said, this has been over a 2-year process. We're actually approaching a 2-year process at this point, between talking with town staff, talking with the abutters. We talked with MDOT through this whole process. That's what led to the extended median. That's what reason that the median is not actually longer. That was a request by MDOT to end it there so they could make their turns out in emergency situations. We spent half a year working with the neighbor to the south to try and get access to the lit intersection. Sadly, that's not an option that they're willing to approach. But it's led us to this design that I think from the crowd here and some of your guys' comments were hopeful, and it sounds like we're on the right path. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. We all set to plug on? All right, the next item for consideration is 4.02. Goral Palmer, on behalf of XL Golf, is requesting sketch plan review for a proposed mixed-use commercial development to include a 5,000 square foot hair salon building and a 3,500 square foot office retail building, each with associated parking, utilities, and stormwater management infrastructure at 556 US Route 1, Assessors Map U35, Lot 2A. I believe, Helen, you're going to introduce this one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you said, this is a sketch plan proposal for a 5,000 square foot hair salon and a 3,500 square foot business office on about a 1.25 acre parcel on Route 1 on 556 US Route 1. It's in the TVC 3 zone, and it also overlaps the shoreland zone, the resource protection zone, and the Phillips Brook overlay. And I believe the applicant is available for questions.
Thank you. And for the applicant?
Hi, good evening. My name is Caleb Rass. I'm from Goral Palmer. I'm a civil engineer representing XL Golf. Here with me this evening is Wendy Holden from Onyx Creative, the project architect for the project here. And oh, there I go. Looking to just join in as a panelist here. One moment. Very good. So as Helen had mentioned here, so what we're here to discuss this evening with you all is a commercial development located at 556 US Route 1, actually about 800 feet further north on Route 1 from the last project that we just discussed here. This is a sketch plan review, and the primary use being a 5,000 square foot salon. So project overview, we're at map U35 lot 2A. This parcel was part of a larger parcel that was actually recently split, and from the adjacent parcel, which has the U-shaped driveway now. And so we're actually just predominantly in the lawn area just north of that. If you've driven by there, there's a little bit of a slope down towards the marsh in the southeast. So one of the things I want to touch on quickly here, and we have plans that go in both directions, but we had a last minute revision to our scope on this project. So the plans that you have seen now from our package included a 5,000 square foot salon, and that also included about 3,500 square foot additional kind of a build to suit building. That was something that the applicant was pursuing, just looking for some opportunity as well in this parcel. But for the time being and now going forward, the project scope will solely include just the 5,000 square foot salon. So my hope is that I have the plans further on in this presentation that are the plans that you all received and had reviewed. And then I have the revised plan, which we can go back and forth to review. But I think just based on parcel size, we're about 1.25 acres on the parcel. And then understanding that the real true focus for this project from the beginning has been for the salon building here. I think you'll see the similarities between the original plan, or the originally submitted plan, and then the plan that I'll show as well. And again, just based on parcel size, I don't think that there's really too much that has changed between the two plans. So to talk a little bit about the salon here, there are 20 rooms / booths that will be within the salon. We are showing 40 parking spaces on this plan that you'll see further on. Permitting requirements for us, we're here before you for our sketch plan review, and we'll certainly come back, and we're looking for a final site plan review here later this summer. Before we do that, we are, much like the project previous to us, we are in the urban impaired stream watershed, which is Phillips Brook. So our plan will be to, for timeline here going forward, I have just below, we had submitted in May. We're having our sketch plan review here in June. Our hope would be to provide applications by the end of July for site plan and Maine DEP. Go through our review with Maine DEP in that longest scenario, the 90-day statutory review for the stormwater law permits. We might receive that permit by October, and then very likely maybe a final approval in October, November. So just a couple slides coming up next here, just to kind of orient on the site to where we are. So just shown on this view here, we have the Payne Road intersection with Route 1, just a little bit north, as I mentioned, about 800 feet north of the previous project there. Our box shown in white here on Route 1. We are on the south or the southeast side of Route 1. Here's another aerial image showing the lot characteristics now as well. So predominantly lawn area now that this property has been developed and then maintained as lawn. There is a portion of wooded area which it looks like has been cleared from time to time, but there are some taller pine trees that remain on the parcel. And then as you move kind of further, a little bit off site becomes a bit more scrub. There are some invasives that we've seen in there as well for that existing vegetation. But overall, our project site will remain in the existing lawn area predominantly. This is just a view now, actually a view kind of flipped here. So south would be kind of the top of the page, and then north being the bottom of the page, and Route 1 shown going left to right across the bottom of this plan here. So what you can see on this plan is the topography. So there is actually a little bit of grade that does pick up across this site, everything generally from the northwest in the bottom right corner to the southeast in the top left corner. Our plan is to maintain this existing curb cut that remains on this parcel now and was seen in the previous aerial image here. There is, when this lot was split from the larger parcel here, there is an access easement that provides access to the adjacent business that does remain. And so that will be one of our kind of key coordination items going forward, is going to be maintaining that access for those folks, and then also just creating a safe condition for both of us here on this curb cut onto Route 1. So the next two sheets are the sheets that we had previously submitted, which, as I had mentioned, showed the additional building scope, which will be removed. The key points that I'd like to point out are going to be the orientation of the building. You'll see more or less remains in what we were trying to do and accomplish on this site here. To accommodate both of these buildings, we had up to 57 parking spaces, and to accomplish that on this site, what we had tried to do previously was to break down some of the individual parking areas. And so as part of that, though, just to gain the parking requirement we thought we needed with both of these buildings, we had a couple of single rows of parking along our frontage here in front of these buildings, which will no longer be present. You'll see in the next revised scope. But what you will see is that, again, as I had mentioned, this building here will remain in a similar orientation. We'll pull it out a little bit more to plan right, and then we will have parking to the side of it in that plan. What you also see on this plan here, this is this dashed dotted line that runs through the corner of the parcel is actually the shoreland zone line. This was a previous line that actually staff had commented on in our staff review. It was previously just pulled from the town's GIS. We've since had that actually field surveyed to locate from the edge of the marsh. So on that revised plan, you'll see that new line. It actually pushes further away into the corner here. So a lot more area outside that shoreline zone with the revised scope will be completely out of that shoreline zone. For grading across the parcel, one of the key things that will remain will be more or less what we're trying to do with the grading scheme on this parcel. There is a bit of grade across this parcel. Where the curb cut currently is actually as the hill starts to more or less crest. So the access conditions onto Route 1 are most ideal at this location. You will have some degree of slopes here. I believe that the running slope in Route 1 at this portion is about 6 to 7% maintained. So you'll see similar grades coming down into the site here, if not a little bit steeper, so that we can make up grade to flatten out so that we can provide areas for more flat access for ADA conditions, which want to be at less than 2%. If I go back one last slide here, just to talk about the utility access that we have, there's public water available in Route 1. That's shown on this plan close to the center of Route 1. We have power near side to us here. We're planning to need for 3-phase power. The idea for that would be to pull off of one of the poles, most likely in the north end of our frontage, and then provide a pad mount transformer kind of out of sight off of the side of the building. For sewer, we do not have public sewer readily available right in front of us here, but there is public sewer available about 800 feet south of us in Route 1. And so we've already started some discussions with the Scarborough Sanitary District, and our plan is currently to pump out of the site and provide a force main connection into the public sewer just south of us there. When I move over to this revised plan, so again, this is the revised plan, a little bit less detail than what you previously saw there. We did not have a grading concept prepared for this one, but what I'll say is that most everything stays very similar. The idea for this building placement is to face this building, and Wendy can talk a bit more about the architecture we have in the slide here, an initial rendering, and she can talk about the vision and what we're truly looking for an experience for folks that are going to be attending or using the salon. So the idea being that we're going to be really capturing these southeast views of the marsh and pointing the long ends of the building, which will have windows from each of the booth areas towards that area. You'll also be lining up generally with your kind of movement of the sun. So even in the afternoon, there will be some good sun coming into the building as it faces Route 1. Additionally, we're providing a little bit of separation from this building to Route 1, which is similar to the original plan to avoid noise from Route 1 from traveling vehicles there. That'll give us an opportunity to provide some robust landscaping in there to really try to also create a little bit of an isolated feel in a way for some of those folks that will be inside the salon, and really comply with a lot of the items that are kind of going into the town's form-based code here, or the TCV3 district. So in this plan, we're down to 40 parking spaces. This has been something that we had talked about in our staff review meeting just a few weeks ago. As I mentioned, we have 20 booths in here, and so the idea being that in the busiest time for this place, there could be as many as 40 people here, one stylist and one customer there. So for us, we're really looking to maintain, I know this is actually more than the required minimum for the town's parking ratios, but we believe that this is really important for this business, and to have a scenario where there is demand and not have enough parking, we believe would really be unacceptable for the business here. So that's something we're really looking for discussion for the board on this evening as well. We have built on some of the items. You'll see the sewer force main will still be the same scheme connecting into the public force main up the road, still the same amount of access for water and power as well. There is no natural gas available here. The plan will be for propane for the time being for hot water services there. And we haven't really ruled out electric for any of those services, but at the moment, we're going to be going for propane. Let me see on the next slide. From there, I'll turn it back over to Wendy to talk about the architecture.
Good evening. Since we've submitted, obviously, we've continued to work with our client and wanted to just give you a sneak peek at some of the direction that we were taking. As Caleb mentioned, what we're trying to do is kind of angle it and tuck the building back on the site to allow it to kind of fit within nature and creating these nice windows so people can relax while they're visiting this business. As well as now that we've pulled the parking away from the front, we can create these pockets of landscape to help create that that atmosphere that the owner wants to create. So as you pull up, you'd have the center space becoming a two-story, more grand entry, glassy, and then the backside. Backside has 4 booths, and then each wing off to each side has 8. So each has views out of the building directly. And then what happens on the interior doesn't obviously matter from your perspective, but you can see through the space because the interior walls will be glass as well. So it's this kind of layered effect through the building as well. So this is generally the form. We can, we have a parapet around the top of the higher part of the building where we could put units once we get to that point in the development of it. And then, so siding, we have horizontal siding. We haven't added color yet because we don't want to present something to you that wouldn't be what the owner wanted. So we're working through that with them now, and just a general idea of where signage may go on the front bump out. So generally, that's the direction that we're taking right now for the concept. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to note really quickly, obviously, there's still much to consider here. We still have to build on landscaping, lighting, a lot of those pieces as well. So just really quickly wanted to discuss just the impact on this plan as well. For total impervious area on this, just considering, total lot area, we're about 1.25 acres of area here. We just barely tripped the stormwater law permit for the urban impaired stream. We're at about 23,000 square feet, I believe, of new impervious area associated with the revised plan that you saw there, as compared to about 35,000 square feet in the previous one. And then our total developed area within the majority of really that lawn area is just less than 1 acre now. So I think that's just about it for us. We're certainly happy to talk a bit more about site access and traffic conditions there. This will be a load generator. I believe what we had for a trip generation thus far, the AM and PM peaks for the weekdays are about 6 in the AM and 10 in the PM. The Saturday is actually really the peak generator, which is about a 25 trip number that we had. So I'll leave it with that, turn that over to you folks, and looking forward to continue discussion on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we start that discussion, I am going to open this agenda item up for public comment. Anyone wishing to make a public comment, please state your name and address at the podium.
Richard Hayes, Martin Avenue. I don't know anything about this project, but my concern is, and it just seems to be a waning concern of officials in town. This is even closer to the marsh. It's got to have an impact on it. I think this land ought to be bought by the land trust and be conserved, as I said earlier, that should happen to the Marshview project land. But I just can't believe that we're considering building something, next we'll be creating something and building on the marsh. This is unbelievable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Denise Hamilton, Two Rod Road. I won't repeat anything I said earlier. But is this also going to be a write-in, write-out? You're, as Richard just said, closer to the marsh. We really need to have infrastructure in place to accommodate the flooding on Route 1 before we keep adding more businesses. Salons, upscale salons, I'm not opposed to that. I'm in the aesthetics business. I had a studio down on Route 1. It's loud. It's not very relaxing. I can assure you of that. I had many complaints from clients. It's not a quiet area, but we need infrastructure in place to because of the flooding and the traffic and people cutting through others' parking lots because they've cut through the parking lot where I am. So, thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Good evening. My name is Victor St. John, and then previously you met my wife, Tracy St. John. We're the owners of the business next door. We just happened to be here where we were here for the other project, but now finding out that there's another project that we're going to be sandwiched in between, there's several concerns. One of the main concerns is the company mentioned that there's been some discussions. I don't think anyone has formally reached out to our business to address any concerns or ask any questions. I think one of the main things that I see as a problem on the sketch design, I know it's all preliminary, they were saying that there's access from our backlot parking lot property to their site access, and that's actually incorrect. Some of the outlines that they had on their map was drawn incorrectly. There is a easement on the curb cut driveway allowing access to the lot, but the remaining property and the remaining driveway that connects is actually our parking lot and additional use that we have for our business. So having that as a main access to their business is probably something that needs to have a serious discussion. Another thing that they were mentioning, I guess, is there's a sewer line connected or 800 feet next to our building. We're on a septic system with our office, which is, why we don't have one. But I'm interested to see how they plan on trying to make that connection, because coming through our front property line is something I don't understand how that would work. So there's a lot of questions that I have about this project in general. And then again, traffic has been always an issue. One of my concerns, even turning into our own business, is making the left-hand turn off Route 1. Coming up from Route 1, I guess that would be heading south. It's fast, people are going 50, 60, and then you're supposed to slow down to 35. And there's a lot of times where people don't slow down and I get scared that I'm going to get rear-ended. So there's some issues with that. But yeah, it's mainly just how they have it outlined on their property. It's kind of interesting that no one's mentioned anything to us, and this is the first that I've kind of heard of it. I don't know if you had.
Just to add on, the only thing is with the first building we were discussing, that problem with the traffic, and now we're going to have another building on the other side with problems with that. We're sandwiched between, affecting a small business that's been established for some time. It's going to greatly affect our business. It's all coming at the same time, and there's going to be more traffic, whether you think it or not. We see it every day. Unless you're sitting there watching it, that's the only way you'll go see it. That's about it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Catherine, you can speak, please.
Hi, I just wanted to add the additional comment that to add to the voices of the residents and the people that own the business, that one development in the previous location and now adding this one, it's just unbelievable. And I don't really understand why they need so many parking spots. But if you put all of those parking spots together, the assumption is they need the parking spots because there will be cars. That's almost 100 cars that are going to be moving in and out of those parking spots. I don't know how you can say that they won't be using the parking spots. They're designing for parking spots. So I'm really disappointed. And the whole impact on the marsh, we really need an independent, serious traffic study, and we really need an environmental study for both of these properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Anybody else?
That is it.
That is it. All right, I'm closing public comment and turning this over to the board, reminding my colleagues that this is a sketch plan and the intent is to provide direction to the applicant in terms of what our expectations are in meeting the requirements of our ordinances. And I think I'll start off by sharing a concern I have with the orientation of this building. Really, our ordinances are driving a more of a street front view with parking in the back. This allows for some robust landscaping between the road and the establishment. And I don't see, it's kind of difficult because we were thrown another plan in front of us. But I would have had the same comment whether this retail space was going to go or not. This isn't quite what we envision here in Scarborough in terms of a business town center kind of an approach here. So I'm really going to task you all to come back.
You want your own spoonable, or you just use spoon? You can just do it.
That's okay. I am going to encourage you to come back with an alternative drawing where you're taking this building and kind of making it a storefront off of Route 1 and having parking behind it. I think something that needs to happen before all of that is some communication with your abutter. And I know this is sketch plan, so that conversation isn't necessarily going to be before the sketch plan, but it's certainly going to happen if you were to come back. And I think I'm just going to leave those thoughts right now and turn this over to my colleagues in no particular order. I saw Roger's hand first and then followed with Rachel. Roger?
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Regarding your comment, your request, geez, what's going on with this?
You good?
I think. I'm not sure the building can be oriented more towards Route 1 because of the shoreline.
The shoreline zoning is in the back. They're completely out of it. It's in the back corner where the tree line is. So they could move it close.
Okay, yeah, all right, I'm sorry. The only other question I have at this point, I'm kind of confused. Was this land where the Rodriguez's all under one ownership at one time and it was broken up?
Yeah, you need to answer on the record.
Originally, I believe there were 3 subdivided lots. We retained 2 of the lots, and I think it was 2.5 acres. So the other lot was subdivided to, I guess, be sold by the original owner, David Parker. So we do own, like where they were saying in their sketch plan, like open grass area. A majority of that is ours too.
Okay, you're in the David Parker building, right?
No, it's not there is no David Parker building.
So
It's the Mend Health, it's St. John Family Trust building.
Is that the brick building? It's a brick.
That's the brick building, yep.
Okay,
And it's a health and wellness chiropractic clinic.
okay.
Does that answer?
I'm
So
not
there's a lot
not
next.
sure.
Okay, and then there is a vacant lot next to it that was subdivided with the town, so. And it is on the town, what do you call it, the town records for the land.
Okay. the only, I remember, maybe Corey, you might remember this too. There was an effort to develop this property 15, 20 years ago or something like that. Do you recall that? And it didn't work because of the lack of sewer lines, if I recall.
Thanks. Corey Fellows, 12 Snowberry Drive, former planning board member. If it's what you're referring to, and I don't remember how many years ago it was, there's a Dunkin' Donuts that was proposed.
That's right.
My recollection was it didn't really come down ultimately to sewer. It came down more to traffic. And the fact that it would have been high intensity retail use with potential queuing from drive-through.
Yeah.
So that's my recollection of what happened there.
Okay. Sorry to disrupt you over here.
No problem.
You were enjoying yourself.
Happy to help.
I don't have anything else at this point.
Okay, thanks, Roger. Rachel?
Yeah, I guess I kind of categorize this project as a little slippery because not entirely what was before us. There have been changes. So let me make some generalizations about what I would look for when you come back to us. I would look for a lot of clarity on who owns what, where, and what easements may or may not be available. So that really needs to be done, I think, pretty much first, so that you know what you've got there. I also would like to see a traffic study. You know, who comes in, who goes out. I'm actually familiar with beauty parlors. My appointment's at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And I don't mind in a sense, the extra parking, because if it is full and you have 20 booths operating, you have one client sitting in each booth, and frequently you will have another client waiting to get into there once the first client is finished. In other words, there is some queuing there. So I have no problem with a few more parking spaces. However, we do require substantial landscaping around parking lots and in parking lots, so that there's no heat sink there. So I would be looking at some substantial landscaping all around a parking area, and actually within it. And then I would be also looking to see if you are planning to have any parking lights or lights in the parking lot. If the building is going to be opened until, let's say, 7 o'clock in the middle of winter, it's quite dark. So there's questions of pedestrian safety. So let's take a look at that. I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah, the outline of the building that I had in my packet did not exactly match the outline of the architectural design that you showed. So there needs to be some reconciliation there. We really need to know what you're asking for. We need to know what the lighting is going to be. We need to know what the electrical systems are going to be. We need to know how many people you've got coming and going. There's a lot of information. Please, when you come back to us, don't come in and say, yeah, well, but we changed a few things that you didn't have a chance to look at. We do our due diligence. We read what you give to us. And it doesn't help you if you come to us with something that's very different, because we're then kind of stumbling around trying to figure out how we can help you by giving you advice about what to bring back to us. But at the same time, being a little worried that there's a lot of missing elements to this. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few brief comments that are kind of top of mind interest for me. First and foremost would just be the grading plan for the site. It sounds like we don't have a grading plan yet for the new site layout, but some comments related to the proximity to the Scarborough Marsh is certainly a priority. So I'd be interested to see what the grading plan is for the new project layout. Additionally, looking at the pedestrian walkway or the sidewalk, the 5-foot sidewalk that's currently in the plans, can't recall if there's an existing sidewalk in that area and whether that would interconnect or connect with that. But just want that to be sort of a thoughtful approach to having a sidewalk there. Otherwise, it's just kind of a segment of sidewalk that doesn't connect to anything. So would like some more information as to what the plan is there. And then just lastly, as some of the other board members have alluded to, it would be very helpful to have further clarity as to the site access and conversations with the butters the next time this comes before us, just so that major kind of component of the plan isn't an unknown and to be determined later type of item. So that's kind of all I have top of mind at the moment. Looking forward to kind of seeing this get refined. But thank you, Mr. Chair, for the airtime.
Thanks, Tyler. James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In addition to the lighting plan for the next submission, I guess I'd like to see included on the plan or somehow captured in writing, how you're going to schedule lighting controls. So showing that the fixtures will be either shut off or dimmed below 50% at night after working hours. What's sort of your nighttime plan? What are the hours of this facility? I know that was mentioned earlier, but one example you might look to most recently was the Market Basket project last month, where fixtures within a certain footage of the building, say 20 feet, are down to 50% or lower. All the rest of the fixtures in the parking lot are shut off. In an effort to reduce sky glow, reduce lighting pollution. You're not gonna have people there at night, and the security cameras are pretty cheap to see if anyone's trespassing. I won't repeat the comments. My concerns about traffic are there, also from the previous application tonight, but one thing I would like to see done is, just given the reactions from the abutting neighbor tonight, is to reach out to them. See if there's some kind of common ground that can be achieved here. If you're trying to bring in sewer, maybe they want to have sewer, and maybe there's a conversation that can be taking place where an enhancement to this site can also be an enhancement, given that everything is mobilized in that area, that they would like to see happen on their site. Again, trying to be just a good neighbor in the space, and making sure that your property lines, easements, and points of access are all shored up and coordinated between the both of you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, James. Any questions for us? I think we've given you some feedback on your sketch plan, despite the fact that we gave you comments on something that we really didn't have time to digest as much as we typically do when we get these submitted to us. But here's your chance to ask us questions and hope we can further clarify direction for you.
Sure, absolutely. I think the first thing, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to talk about was the building placement, as you had requested here. What I can show you is what we had for the previous grading plan.
Well, if we're looking at something on a previous and it's kind of changed, maybe you can come back with us with a site plan for the site plan review and go over that with us at that time.
I certainly understand. I think that if I can, the topography doesn't change across the site from the plan that's on the screen now to the one we had previously shown. We're still going to land at the same building finished floor elevation generally, which is about 33 on this plan here. And our access conditions being at generally elevation 41. So we've got to make up about 8 feet to get from the road down to the building. And so as you can see, just across this plan here, just across our frontage, we go from elevation 42 in the bottom right corner down to, I believe, about a 32 or 31 for an elevation. So one of the things for us when siting this building, being the length of the building and how this wants to generally set up with the booths and having good access, window access and views for those folks, is that just generally, if we were to take this same building with the length of it and place it up against the property line, honestly, even if it weren't right up against the property line, even further back in the lot, it would require some intense fills to bring that up to grade. And I think even with this building plan that we have here, I think we're showing about 4 feet, maybe 5 feet at the very most underneath that building now. So it actually it's a key consideration for us, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that and how that might be something that we can talk through, or if we need to be completely square up against the building. Really looking for that good feedback. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Well, I think that's
exactly
something
what
that
we're
maybe
looking
you,
for, yeah.
you can discuss with staff
Sure.
prior to getting your submission together.
Yeah.
They'll help with direction, and it's key to work with the staff. And they know the ordinances inside and out, and they know what the expectations are. And I think it would do you service to have that conversation with them and put together what their recommendations are as well.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Very
I
good.
will just add that the ordinance requirements are regardless of your grading concerns. So you do have to meet the ordinance requirements, whether it works on the site the way you would like it or not. You do have to, the majority of the parking needs to be to the side or rear, and the building should be brought to the front based
Sure.
on the zoning. So you could kind of probably
Yeah.
do both, but we
Yeah,
can
absolutely.
definitely talk about it.
Good. Well, thank you very much. And that's about it for me. Again, I do apologize. We're showing you the two different plans here. We're working with what we can here and trying to make sure that we can give you the most up-to-date information, trying to be as vocal as we can to try to get across our clients' needs for this project. And we really appreciate the feedback. So next time we'll be before you, we'll have something a bit more cleaned up with a lot more information on the landscaping, lighting, a lot of those elements. And we can go from there. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. At this juncture, we usually take a break. We're a little over our 8:30 break time. So let's take 5 and get back here at, we have 2 more sketch plans. So let's get here by 10 up. Fair enough? We'll resume with item number 4.03 to be exact. Sebago Technics, on behalf of Maine Health, is requesting sketch plan review of a proposed 18,000 square foot ambulatory surgery center and associated improvements to the existing parking lot near 300 Southborough Drive, Assessor's Map R37, Lot 48C. Helen, I think you're gonna lay this one on us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, this is a sketch plan proposal for, or review for the 18,000 square foot ambulatory surgery center from Maine Health at 300 Southborough Drive. It's in the B2 district. And as you mentioned, there is an existing parking lot on the site, which would be redone to make space for the new building. And that would ultimately reduce the total number of parking spaces on the site. So just wanted to highlight that, but with that, I will pass it to the applicant who's available for questions.
Thanks, Helen. And for the applicant?
Second. Share our screen here. There we go. You're off and running. Thank you. One second.
Great. Thanks, Henry. Good evening, folks. My name is Al Green. I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Business Development for Maine Health. And thank you, Mr. Chair and the Planning Board for sticking with it. Although it's a late night for me, I'm sure you're used to this. I'm here to talk a little bit about the why, but I promise I'll make my comments quick. Whenever we talk about proposing a new healthcare facility, we always like to start with the why because, of course, it's important. And I'll transition to my next slide here. Thank you. Our vision for Maine Health is working together so our communities are the healthiest in America. And as such, we're working with Boulder Architects as our architecture firm and Sebago Technics for our civil engineering. And I want to talk a little bit about the healthiest communities part of that vision, which is this project is an opportunity for us to demonstrate some of that. So with this project, we're looking to do three things. And I'll start by saying that the idea for this project started about 3 years ago when we put together a strategic plan for surgical services at Maine Health. And if you're not familiar with Maine Health, it's a not-for-profit with 11 hospitals around the sort of southern half of the state, Biddeford, Maine Medical Center, of course. And what that plan focused on was the need for improved access specific to outpatient ambulatory procedures, ongoing quality improvements, which is part of everything that we do, and improving the patient experience. This project, by its nature, is going to improve access by increasing the capacity for outpatient procedural services within Southern Maine. It will be focused on orthopedic services, which are currently offered in 3 locations within Maine Health in the southern region. So we're centralizing that and we're streamlining the process, wherein by the improved patient experience and quality come in. When you create an environment like the one we're proposing here to focus on a small subset of procedure types, you create some levels of efficiency, some level of habit by the care providers in that site. And in so doing, you create standard processes, standard workflows that eliminate risk, thereby improving quality. We already provide very high quality services, which you saw as part of the application. We did submit a preliminary analysis from the state. This project is subject to the Certificate of Need regulation within the state. And I'm happy to say just earlier last week, end of last week, we received approval from the state for that Certificate of Need. So we are headed in the right direction from the state's perspective. And also from the patient experience. With that quicker process, it's more streamlined workflows, you create an environment where patients can get in, get the care that they need, and go home as quickly as possible, thereby providing a better patient experience rather than going to Maine Medical Center, finding a parking spot, navigating the labyrinth that is Maine Medical Center to find the place you need to either get the scan prior to the procedure or get the procedure itself. We're trying to avoid that for our population seeking orthopedic services. I'm happy to answer any questions as we wrap up here, but I'm going to turn it over to Henry for the meat and potatoes part of the presentation. Thank you.
Uh, Good evening. My name is Henry Hess, landscape architect with Spago Technics, representing Maine Health this evening, and the project here at 300 Southborough Drive. Al talked a little bit about the why. I'm going to get into the how here. So on the site there, as staff mentioned, the existing conditions is it's roughly 19-acre lot plus or minus there. It's majority developed as a impervious parking lot. There is a professional office building out there on site. It's about 117,000 square feet. It does reside, this property is split by that South Portland Scarborough line. The existing building is on the South Portland side, and the majority of the parking lies on the Scarborough side. It is, as mentioned, in the B2 district. It's professional office use. The existing building does have access to municipal water. There's actually at least two hydrants that front along Southborough Drive in front of this site here. There is access to municipal sewer as well, that the project is proposing to tie into, as well as the existing building does take advantage of available gas in the road there. Right now, the parking lot exists, as you can see in a picture right here, in the existing conditions, largely impervious with a number of parking spaces out there. Oops, excuse me. Roughly about 641 spaces. I believe staff memo had me quoted a slightly different number, but we're roughly in the same ballpark there. It's 604, and we've recounted and got 641 spaces. The existing building out there requires 335 spaces. We did pull that as a building located in South Portland from that South Portland ordinance. That's certainly something we can talk through with staff. We were anticipating the building proposed would be Scarborough ordinance parking requirements, the existing building under South Portland requirements. The proposed conditions here in our preliminary submission for sketch plan show the ambulatory surgical center, again, professional office use, 18,000 square feet. It showed renovating and putting landscape islands throughout that entire parking lot. Actually, a lot of that parking lot for the use itself, for an 18,000 square foot building, really only need just under 70 or around 70 spaces for that use at that size. So the redevelopment process here, we're looking at gaining access off that Southborough Drive through the existing access drive. The first turn you'd come to there would be the delivery and drop off for loading that take you around the back of the building. With preferably it'd be a one-way circulation that then links up to the parking lot, and you would exit the lot out another drive aisle. Patients arriving to the building would come to the patient drop-off area before either they or a loved one would be continuing on to find parking. There is ADA parking, prioritized as close as we could to the building with the drop-off there. I do want to say we have had some changes to the site itself. As we've developed the program in the last couple of weeks here since our submission in May, the building has gotten slightly bigger at 20,000, a little over 20,000 square feet. And we've just adjusted the drop-off and arrival sequence accordingly, just to the slightly expanded building. You'll see the development footprint largely the same. Really looking to keep the development footprint within what's required for the spaces for the use itself. The parking required for a 20,000 square foot building is that 4 per 1,000 at 84 spaces. The building coverage on the site is about 16.5 overall, 50% allowed in the zone. The total proposed spaces about 102, 12 of those being ADA and only 9 required. Maine Health seems to find that, especially for an ambulatory surgical use, they like to provide higher than even what's required. I believe the ADA guideline is 10% for a use like this. They're rising above that 10% use. So we found that the total required parking is available to satisfy both uses on the site. But you'll see now from the submitted package, there was just a plain rectangle at 18,000 square feet. What you see here has a slight bend in the building to assist in some of how the spaces are laying out inside the building there. Largely, access to the site hasn't changed. The goal in this site in developing it, we have an existing site out there. Access will be from Southborough Drive. Utilities are on municipal water. There will be municipal sewer, as I'd mentioned. What I don't think I mentioned is it runs gravity from the site into Southborough Drive towards South Portland to a South Portland pump station. So we have actually reached out initially to South Portland to get some capacity understanding for the site. Initially, with our preliminary estimates of 3,000 gallons per day, which is what we were looking at, South Portland stated they don't believe they have a capacity issue, but we are formally getting everything together to submit that information to them. And we'll have a letter submitted to Scarborough as part of our full application. This site is adjacent to the Red Brook. And as such, we will be working with DEP. There is an existing SLOTA out there that we're looking to amend. That's a Site Location of Development Act permit. So that will be amended, and as such, we will be following the Stormwater Requirements Chapter 500 and working in the redevelopment standard to meet water quality standards. There are two small detention areas, or I shouldn't call them small, but two detention areas out there on site today. They're handling the flooding, but not necessarily the water quality. So we will be providing some improvements to the stormwater facilities out there. The existing drive aisles out there on site today are about 30 feet wide. One of them is 28, but they tend to run about 30 feet wide. The proposed project, both in exactly what was submitted in your packets and what we continue to move forward with, will be looking to utilize a 24-foot drive aisle to better provide more concise circulation. I can't say we're limiting our impervious, as we're going to be right around the same impervious amount, but that hopefully keeps us, if we were to do 25-foot drive aisles, we'd certainly be expanding further. So the goal is trying to limit our development footprint in general. So let me go on a little bit here. We did provide an architectural rendering this evening that the architecture, or Boulder Architects, has provided for us, just to give a quick visual understanding of some of the preliminary materials that might be used here. All looking to be non-reflective building materials, moving away from the brick currently, and proposing kind of a mixture of materials there, including some glass along the entry there, just to provide that transparency in the building and provide good light into the building. It's a single-story building, as reflected here. The site itself, in redeveloping and going through there, we will be handling some of the lighting. Of course, there's some lighting in that parking lot today. Any lighting submitted as a part of the packet going forward will certainly make sure to be meeting the dark sky compliances, IES standards, and the Scarborough ordinance. Traffic for the site, let me pull up my numbers on that. Traffic for the site anticipated, a quick generation here, about 63 trips in the AM and 87 in the PM. We anticipate that we'll be providing a full, traffic analysis for Scarborough. We don't anticipate any large DOT permitting as a part of that, as we are under the thresholds for a traffic movement permit. We'll certainly be providing traffic analysis to the town itself as well as part of our preliminary application. But with that, I can certainly turn it over to the board, and any comments, questions you may have, certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, Henry. Before I turn it to the board, this item is available for public comment. Anybody in the audience wishing to comment, please do so now. Anybody online? Seeing none, close public comment and turn this over to my colleagues in no particular order. First hand I see gets it. Okay, Rachel.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the site back there because I've had frequent meetings at the 300, the building there. And I really appreciate the fact that you're going to take what's essentially a very desolate parking lot and do some good work with it. But now I have a question about that work. It looked as though you're going to cut off the work in the parking lot about halfway down. Do you own the whole of that parking lot? What's the extent of the ownership?
Yes, they do own the whole, that whole lot there.
It would be awfully nice if we had some landscaping in the rest of that lot. Really would. Because just stopping the landscaping and the rehab partway down then looks a little a little raggedy. Let's see, you had the deliveries coming in the first exit, the first turn. You're going to need some good wayfaring directions there, delivery trucks only sort of thing. And a direction that says patients this way, something that makes sure that people get to their site. I have a question. What's the approximate number of parking spaces that you are eliminating?
It's about 136.
What's that in square feet? I mean, it'd be helpful.
136 times 162, if I could do the math real quick.
Yeah, you can do the math. Your phone can do it pretty fast. It's always helpful when people say that they are eliminating impervious area to know how much that is.
Well, I mean, that number of spaces is about 22,000 square feet. I don't want to mislead the board here in the sense that most of this development is on the existing parking lot. The drive aisle around the back of the building does bleed in off the parking lot there. So overall, with the added landscape islands and everything, there's about a 3,500 to 4,000 square foot actually increase in the overall impervious.
Huh. Well, you're going to have to put that down too.
Certainly, while there's an increase there, we're hoping that with the added landscape and canopies throughout the parking lot there, we can hopefully reduce any sort of heat island effect there.
Yeah,
I do hear that. I do
every
hear that
effort you can
concern.
make.
I think one item I forgot to mention to the board there is that site is woefully difficult for a pedestrian to maneuver. There is a trail around the outer skirts that kind of links around the whole property throughout the grass and the tree line there. We're not proposing to do anything with that except where impacted, make sure it's repaired to keep that linkage around the site. And then we've added sidewalks along the existing landscape buffers that are along the main access drive and then down the center drive aisle for access to ADA parking as well to continue access for pedestrians throughout the parking lot.
All right, make sure that that's noted.
Certainly.
To get out of the site, you go. Okay, you have to go halfway down the parking lot. And then turn to in other words, you pick up the patient, you turn left, you go halfway down the parking lot, you turn left and turn left, correct?
You could either turn left or right there. You can get out to Southborough Drive on either access, left or right. Yep.
Provide decent
Some signage arrows.
because the people who are coming are likely only to be there maybe once every 5 years. So then they're not going to get into a routine of knowing how to get out. So anything that you can help them with, again, would be very helpful. In the new configuration, are you going to have any sort of covering portico for picking up and dropping off patients in bad weather, especially when you're picking up a patient who's hobbling along?
Yes, there's some of it's kind of, maybe the angle's difficult to see with this overhang. There is a covered canopy at the entrance there. And as well, in the renderings we've shown, there will be at least over that first drop-off aisle, not the bypass lane.
So that
Correct.
people can drive under? Okay. Wasn't sure what you had there. I'm glad you're here. Made Med is a quality organization. I've used your surgical center. Don't want to use it again. You have a lot of floor space here in Scarborough, and you've always been a very good neighbor. So, thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. James?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a really suitable application for the location of the facility. I think it's a good use of the space. The only thing I'll add, and just to ensure that you folks make sure this doesn't get missed, is For after-hours lighting, outdoor lighting located more than 30 feet from the building must be turned off 30 minutes after closing, remain off until business reopens. And then any exterior lights that have to be on after hours within that 30 feet need to be 50% dimmed or lower until 30 minutes before they're reopened. So that's just all stuff in the ordinance, but just want to make a reminder.
Appreciate the comment.
Thanks, James. Roger, you want to go? Nothing? You're all set? Okay. Adam? All right. Yeah, I think this could fit very nicely. I think it would clean up the aesthetics of what it currently looks like. So that's always an improvement. I think you can continue working with staff and fine tune some things and get together a full site plan submission. But before you go, do you have any questions for us?
But I think I saw some head nods regarding the parking requirements and ordinances and looking at South Portland and Scarborough there. Right now, I mean, the feedback we've received is very helpful, and certainly we'll make sure as we come back we'll see what we can do about making sure we're hitting our landscape requirements in the parking lot. Make sure that as anything we pull forward has at least showing some good wayfinding signage and locations to direct folks coming to the site. And then, of course, anything with photometrics, we'll make sure we're following the ordinance for Scarborough. Thank you.
Excellent. Oh, yeah, and the EV ordinance.
Yep.
That's tandem with our parking ordinance.
We certainly do intend to be compliant with that. I think we did not include anything in our application, but anything coming forward preliminary will be showing either, I believe it's the 5% capable and help me out, Autumn, 10% ready.
Did you put it on here?
Or 20% ready?
15 on
5% capable.
And 10% capable.
Thank you.
I just wanted you to be aware, it will apply to the redeveloped portion. So not the entirety, it's the portion of the
The
park.
portion that's redeveloped, correct? Not the entire.
You don't want to do it to your neighbor? You can if you want.
No, really, it's
You're not required to.
from that question though. If we're providing 102 spaces overall, but the use requires 84, is it off the 102?
It's what you.
It's what you put in.
Good. That's all I needed to know.
All right.
Thank
Then
you all for your feedback.
we may see you again.
You certainly.
Good luck to you. Thank you. All right, folks, we're down to 4.04. The last item under consideration is Stonefield Engineering and Design on behalf of Waterstone Scarborough LLC is requesting sketch plan review for construction of a new commercial bank center building, Bank of America, of approximately 4,690 square feet with an attached drive-up ATM location at 700 Gallery Boulevard, Assessors Map R37, Lot 3,307. I believe, Helen, you're going to introduce this one?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is our last sketch plan review of the evening. As you mentioned, this is for a 4,690 square foot bank with a drive-through ATM in the B2 zone at 700 Gallery Boulevard. Not too much to note here ahead of the applicant, but I did want to mention that a similar plan for this site was reviewed by the planning board a few years ago, but it was not approved. And I wanted to highlight that this is a revised layout since then with a new applicant. So in case that rings any bells for anyone, just wanted to mention that. And with that, I'll pass it to the applicant.
Thanks, Helen. And for the applicant?
Good evening, Josh Klein, Stonefield Engineering and Design. We're the project engineer for the project. I think that was kind of a perfect segue. So this project was in front of this board in 2023. It was never kind of voted on. My understanding was it went to one hearing. There was some feedback from the board. There was definitely some challenges from Maine DOT from a traffic movement permit standpoint. And the project kind of fizzled out. We were kind of brought on recently. Bank of America is looking now to kind of take over the permitting process and kind of look to move the project forward. So they're leasing kind of this existing vacant portion of the property. It's about 30,000 square feet, kind of next to where the mattress firm is. If you want to pull up the site plan, I'll highlight a couple things. So when this application went in front of the board in 2023, there were some similarities. We kind of took some of the feedback that we found in kind of our conversations with the property owner and kind of looking at some old correspondence on it. One of those included kind of realigning and updating the driveway that would kind of both access the Bank of America as well as kind of the Mattress Firm and kind of multi-tenant strip center to the right-hand side. What we kind of looked at then were kind of working within some of the challenges. It is a vacant lot, which is nice. It's relatively flat. There's kind of this mounded sloped area for those that I'm sure this board has gone in where the monument sign is in the top left corner. But there is a drainage easement along the left-hand side of the page. So there's kind of where the bypass lane currently is. And what makes it a little unique is kind of the frontages. So it's kind of got that one public frontage on Gallery, but it's kind of also to the left, you have kind of that one of the main entries into the shopping center, and then kind of one of the main drive aisles at the bottom of the page. So kind of positioning that makes it a little bit unique. One of the big changes that we've made kind of with this latest layout is the previous iteration had no parking against the building. So all the parking was on the perimeter and you had to kind of walk the ADA accessible parking, for example, you had to kind of walk across the drive aisle. So what we looked to do is kind of shifted the building slightly back, added some kind of customer parking and ADA parking right along the front of the building. We still have the kind of the parking on the right-hand side and a few parallel spaces to the bottom of the page. So currently we're showing 19 parking spaces with a single drive-up ATM. The bank is also looking to design the site for future ATM. What they found is, in demand, there's a lot of times in the future, a second ATM is desirable. So what they need to kind of ensure is, does the site work for that future ATM? So you can kind of see to the bottom of the page below the bank building, there's kind of a dashed area. So that shows where that kind of future ATM would be located. Those 3 parallel parking spaces would be removed. We'd still have 16 proposed parking spaces. Again, parking, this was included in the staff report, isn't really an issue given kind of the shared use of the shopping center and for the bank. The kind of other highlights is, again, from 2023, building's gotten a little bit smaller from about 5,000 square feet to 4,600. And we've kind of looked to incorporate the landscape, but we do have a few additional landscape changes and things we'd have to kind of modify as we went forward with site plan. I think one of the big things tonight is we're looking for some feedback just in general on the layout, the parking location, kind of the site circulation of the site. If you want to go one more slide, we just brought some renderings with us as well. I can
Just have mine.
yeah, I can stand them out.
I think you included them in the packet.
Yeah, let me open up a different.
I got it. Yeah.
It was perfect. You had everything we needed on one page, so we were close. I do have a board I can just pull up.
I think that didn't open.
Are you doing it?
Yeah.
Oh, somebody got it.
Perfect. So these are kind of the renderings that match the plan that was submitted. So the top left would kind of be if you were standing up against that freestanding sign, kind of looking at the main entrance. The right-hand side would be kind of a view coming in kind of the main drive aisle. You can see the ATM. And then the bottom left would be kind of, that's an employee-only entrance. Architecturally, they look to kind of dress it up a little bit more. Just, again, we have a building that's almost has 3 facades that are all facing roadways. So kind of giving it a little bit of a canopy, some additional kind of glazing around the employee-only entrance. But customers would all be using kind of that primary entrance in the top left corner that's shown. A couple other highlights, we'd obviously have to go through this in site plan review. We'll incorporate kind of new site lighting. It is a 24-hour drive-up ATM, as well as there's a 24-hour ATM in the vestibule of the space. So we have to ensure that there would be security lighting 24 hours. Again, no residents in this area, commercial shopping center. But I did want to kind of just touch on the lighting. But again, we know it's been a long night. You've had some lengthy applications in front of us, so we're happy to get some feedback.
Great. Thank you. This item is available for public comment. Anybody wishing, please step up. We don't have a wide audience in the virtual world. All right. We're closing public comment, and I'll start this one off by saying, I vaguely remember being on the board when the bank was being proposed here. Seems like banks are popular, banks and coffee shops. I think the building looks great. I think you've given some good considerations on traffic flow. It looks like there is no drive-in service available. It's only for an ATM. So the queuing, it looks like maybe 5 cars can fit there before it starts to wrap around.
Correct. It's just an ATM,
Yep.
no kind of screen.
I have very seldom have I seen more than somebody annoyed at me for being there too long behind me. So I'm pretty content that we won't get any bottlenecking as it turns and then makes its way out of the site. I really don't have any other things to bring up at this point, and so I'll let any colleagues want to pipe in. Rachel wants to, so you have the floor.
Sure. I remember this as well. I remember struggling with a lot of things about it because of the location of the site, I guess. In the staff comments, which you should have, the staff comments on materials submitted. If you look at the second page or the back of the first page, there are some recommended items for discussion. And there were several comments there asking you to do some things, including the plan requires landscaping for parking islands, parking lot screening, mechanical area screening, and foundation landscaping. The proposed site plan does not appear to meet all of these requirements. There are a couple of additional things that the staff is asking you to take a look at. Do you have any problems with those or any questions?
In terms of the landscaping, additional paved markings and snow storage are all things we'd incorporate as part of site plan review. I know from an architectural standpoint, the architecture team's kind of reviewing the last bullet point to see if there's ways that we can introduce more transparency.
Very good. I appreciate that. And the only other comment I might make is something that you said about an area where the staff can enter. If it looks as though anybody can enter, then, you're going to have people driving up and stopping and saying, well, this is going to be a way into the building. So just make sure you have signs. Something employees only, large enough for the people driving by who might want to think they can stop and go in there can see. Just, anything to keep folks from being confused, because as you noted, you have essentially almost a four-sided building that's going to be sitting there that people can be looking for how they get in. So just make sure that you're clear with that and that you've covered what the staff comments are and their concerns. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Anyone else? Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few comments. If I'm understanding this correctly, it looks like there's employee parking to the south of the building. Employee only parking. Just wanted to confirm. So there's a median between the employee parking and I guess where the cars will be exiting by the building. I assume between where the employees park and that median, should somebody drive back there, they can still get by the employees' cars and exit the drive line there.
Yeah, it's a little confusing because we're showing like future ATM and then kind of day one, but the intent would be as of day one, there'd be 3 employee-only spaces in the parallel, and then there's an 18-foot island that might get reduced a little bit to enhance some of the foundation plantings, but there wouldn't be anything that it would impede kind of customers exiting. Now, if under kind of that day 2, those 3 employee spaces would go away, and that would then become kind of the drive aisle for those accessing the ATM there. So either way, there'd still be kind of a shared bypass and people would be get around, but under day one, there, you wouldn't see any island there.
Great, thanks for speaking to that. The only other thing I might recommend is some consideration as to whether it's appropriate to have a crosswalk from those employee spots to the building. If you have employees regularly parking there for some time and, you know, folks are coming around that building, it would be, could be appropriate to have some kind of signals that to expect employees kind of crossing the parking lot across that driveway. But other than that, no kind of additional comments. Appreciate kind of the work that's gone into what we see here. So thank you.
Thanks, Tyler. James?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No real big comments for me, other than always the question of, I guess we'll take another bank in Scarborough, sure. The only comments, and I do remember this from 2 years ago, I think one suggestion was, as far as just getting more, knowing you can't put windows on certain walls of this building because, you know, it's guarding vital sensitive areas, concrete, rebar and reinforced walls and so on. Still can put in sort of a false window or fake window, something on the outside that's darkened. You don't have to see through it, but it gives that projection of just a more sort of welcoming structure than a vault in the middle of the parking lot. And then I would just like to see some more robust vegetation, something, just something to add more variety to that space. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. That concludes our comments. Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah. My last question would just be, I think we did, the bank is kind of gearing up to go forward. It seemed like overall the board was comfortable with the main entrance facing Gallery Boulevard. I think that was something we were looking for.
I think you got some nods.
Okay. Nods are great, especially this late in the night. It can be good or bad.
Yeah, sure,
sometimes,
whatever.
yeah.
No. Yeah, I think I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good.
Well,
Then I suspect we'll see you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, that's our items for consideration. Move to minor development reviews.
None at this time.
Any administrative amendments,
None at this time.
correspondence,
No.
planning board comments? Roger.
Yeah, regarding TVC zones, Autumn. I wonder if it might be a good idea, the bulletin that comes out bi-monthly, the newsletter, to put a piece in there pertaining to, I think there's 4 TVC zones, right? Now, we've had a number of new people move into town. And it may be a good idea if you could put something together in there and just say, if you live in this particular area, that's a TVC zone, and provide them with a link to take a look and make sure that they know where they're living, where the boundaries are, and whether they're in that zone or whether they're out of the zone, because I think that causes some consternation amongst especially new people who moved into the community.
I think you're totally right. We actually had a long-range planning committee last Friday, and we're talking about the TVC zones. And we concluded that we really needed to almost do a rebranding of TVC, because town and village conjures up an image that not everyone sees a 4-story building, right? But the density that's allowed. So I think that's a really good, I think you'll see more and more long-range planning committee. I think that'll be the project probably for the rest of the year, working on those zones.
Yeah, okay, good.
Anybody else?
Well, I was going to talk about the long-range planning and the TVC zones. No, we're taking a look at them and starting to consider, they're really kind of neighborhoods where people can walk around and meet and everything else. And this possibility for some standardization of some of the setbacks and other things. It's a monster project Autumn, you're trying to get a consultant? Is it gonna be for
The
that?
idea is for the long-range planning committee to do some of the baseline work and maybe work on consolidating it, and then to get a consultant to help us do some visioning for specific neighborhoods in town, like a Dunstan small area plan, where we have an architect that, or a team that can come in and do some live charrettes with people, so that we get specific design standards. So maybe it ends up that Dunstan this is extreme, but maybe Dunstan has a certain roof pitch and a certain materials selection, so it has an identity that's different from Oak Hill. Those are both in the TVC zones, but right now it's all the same.
Well, I think it would be a good thing to let the public know that there is maybe some confusion on the part of residents as to what zone they're in.
Yep.
And that the Long Range Planning Committee is currently reviewing that. But still provide them with an easy way to check out where they are living to make sure they're in the zone they
Yeah.
think they're in.
I think that's a great idea for everyone,
Yeah.
townwide.
And also alerts them that at least the town's on top of this.
Mhm.
Yeah, so.
All right. We have a motion to adjourn. Thank you,
So
Richard.
moved.
I'm on
James.
vacation for the rest of the month.
Second, I guess.
So am I.
Great.
Yeah.
I'll say second.
I gave James the nod.
So where are you guys going?
I'm gonna have a.
Richard.
Nobody's here.